What does it mean to live in the present? Does it mean to experience every moment exactly as it happens, without delay or distraction? Or what does it mean something else entirely? Today, we're going to try and find out that we'll examine our biology, the nature of time, and the limits of perception. Join me on this thought experiment, because we're about to discover that the present we think we reliving and might not be what it seems. Take a moment and just be still. Listen to the sounds around you. Look at your surroundings. What you're experiencing right now, in this very instant, feels like the present, doesn't it? It feels real time. But what if I told you that what you perceive as now is actually a carefully constructed illusion? What if I told you that our brains are, in fact, incredibly sophisticated time machines, living in the immediate past? We humans like to think of ourselves as creatures that exist in the here and now. After all, we plan our days, make decisions in real time, and form memories of our experiences. But if we're honest with ourselves, we have to admit that our experience of the present is actually quite limited. For instance, have you ever noticed that when watching a movie, you often don't realize what's happening until a few seconds after it occurs on the screen? It's as if you're living in a sort of delayed reality. Well, it turns out that this phenomenon isn't unique to watching movies. In fact, it's true for everything we experience in life. Now, you might be thinking, come on, this can't possibly be true. I'm clearly seeing and hearing things right now that are happening right now, aren't I? Well, yes and no. Yes, you're seeing and hearing things right now, but what you re-perceiving as right now is actually a fraction of a second in the past. Let me explain. Everything we experience starts out as a physical stimulus, like light waves hitting our retinas or sound waves entering our ears. These stimuli then travel through our nervous system to our brains, where they're processed and interpreted. But this entire process takes time. The speed of nerve signals in the body is astonishingly fast, but it's not instantaneous. Even the fastest nerve fibers can only transmit information at around 268 miles per hour. Now, this might seem really fast, but it's not as fast as the speed of light. Light travels at roughly 186,000 miles per hour at there's a significant delay between the time a stimulus occurs and the time our brain receives it. Let's take an everyday example, reading a book. When you read the words on a page, you actually seeing the image of the words that have been printed on the page long after your eyes have looked at them. Your brain is processing the visual information contained in the image, converting it into electrical signals, which are then transmitted to the visual cortex at the back of your brain. This is where the image is actually perceived as written words. The whole process takes a few hundred milliseconds, meaning that when you think you're reading a book in real time, you're actually reading it a fraction of a second after it's happening. This is a phenomenon known as perceptual lag, and it's not just limited to visual stimuli. It applies to everything we experience with our senses, including hearing. So if you listen to someone speaking, you're actually hearing their voice a few milliseconds after they produce the sound. But surely the delay isn't that bad, is it? I can talk to you and you can respond to me seemingly without hesitation. Well, actually, the delay is usually imperceptible to us because our brains are remarkably good at compensating for it. Through billions of years of evolution, our brains have developed sophisticated mechanisms to predict what will happen next. We unconsciously use our past experiences to make informed guesses about the present and future. For instance, if someone starts speaking to you, your brain doesn't wait for them to finish their sentence before trying to understand what they're re-saying. Instead, it uses context clues and its knowledge of language to fill in the blanks, allowing you to follow conversations without missing a beat. In fact, our brains do this kind of predictive modeling for everything we experience. We don't see the world as it is, but as our brains expect it to be. And this is where things get really interesting, because it turns out that this predictive ability is what allows us to experience the present. Without it, we wouldn't be able to function in the world around us. Imagine, for example, playing a musical instrument or dancing. These activities require precise coordination between our movements and the sounds or visuals we're responding to. Without the ability to predict what's coming next, we'd be lost. This is why the brain's delay in processing information isn't a limitation. It's a feature. It's what allows us to make sense of the world around us. It allows us to experience the present in a way that makes life livable and meaningful. The ability to predict what's going to happen next is what makes it possible for us to exist in the present. This brings us to a fundamental question. How far into the future does our brain predict? Is it just a matter of milliseconds, or can we predict much further ahead? Well, the answer is that the length of our predictions depends on the context. In a familiar situation, our brains can make accurate predictions a minute or even longer into the future. We can safely assume that a conversation will continue along its current trajectory, or that a familiar song will play to its natural conclusion. However, in unfamiliar situations, our brains are forced to make shorter, more conservative predictions. When faced with something new or unexpected, our brains revert to a sort of survival mode, making cautious, short-term predictions until we have more information to work with. So it is clear that our brains are remarkable machines capable of making accurate predictions about what's going to happen next. But the question remains, can our brains predict events far enough into the future to allow us to experience the present? Can we ever truly be in the present, or are we always stuck in the past? There's a famous quote by the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein that goes, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." And this couldn't be more true when talking about our experience of time. The fact is, we can only experience time as it passes, one moment at a time. We can't jump to the future to see what's coming. So the answer is that we can never be in the future, no matter how good our predictive abilities are. We can only ever be in the present, which is always slightly delayed. Imagine standing on a moving walkway in an airport. You're moving forward, but you're not actually in control of the movement. You're simply letting the current carry you along. Similarly, we're carried along the timeline of life by the relentless march of time. We can make predictions and plans, but ultimately we're at the mercy of the universe. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. After all, it's what makes life an adventure. It keeps us on our toes and forces us to be adaptable. It reminds us that we can't take anything for granted and that every moment is precious. So the next time you look at a clock or feel the warmth of the sun, remember this. Your conscious experience of that moment isn't an exact, instantaneous mirror of the universe. It's a brilliant, predictive simulation crafted by your brain. You are a biological time traveler, living in the immediate past, experiencing a present that is a stunning, sophisticated illusion. And in many ways, that's far more incredible than any other kind of time travel. I hope you enjoyed today's exploration into the nature of time and the human brain. If you want to learn more about this topic, we've included links to some of the research studies and other resources that inspired this episode in the show notes below. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And until next time, keep exploring the incredible world inside your head.